Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In response to the member from Richmond who was up earlier, I'd just like to clarify some comments on Bill C-16 that I heard in this House before. So Bill C-16 does not change the offence of extortion itself and does not create any new mandatory minimum sentences for extortion. What it does do is add extortion as an explicit aggravating factor. It does not redefine extortion. It does not increase the maximum penalty for extortion. It does not add a new mandatory minimum for extortion, and it does not create any new standalone offences for extortion as well. Just wanted to clarify that for the House of Commons before we began. So, Mr. Speaker, the reason we are here today with another Opposition Day motion is because the Liberals told us we needed to have one today. They allotted one of our supply days early on because they would rather push forward their new agenda to say we're delaying things in the House of Commons before the Prime Minister likely calls a spring election. So that's what's taking place today. It is the government that controls the House calendar, so all of the rhetoric we heard from the member from St. Catharines in his anger and confusion, we're only here today because the Liberals didn't want to talk about their own bills. Full stop. So, Mr. Speaker, I do rise in support of what we're talking about today, and the safety of our communities is the first duty of a free and just society, and unfortunately the Liberals forgot that for 10 years. The foremost responsibility of any government is to protect law-abiding citizens. Across British Columbia and across Canada, that responsibility is being tested with increasing urgency. Recent data and public warnings point to a troubling rise in organized extortion and related criminal activity, while the response required to confront this threat has too often been delayed. For too long, policies that weaken consequences for serious crime and blur the integrity of our immigration system have eroded public confidence in safety and justice. After nearly a decade, Canadians are asking a fundamental question: why do criminals feel more confident while communities feel more vulnerable? For small business and construction workers to truck drivers and young families, ordinary Canadians are facing intimidation that disrupts the livelihoods and undermines stability. In places such as Abbotsford, threatening extortion letters have unsettled entire neighbourhoods and placed growing strain on local police. These are the lived realities for Canadians who seek nothing more than to work and raise their families and live in peace. Since the Liberals took office nearly 10 years ago, violent crime has increased by 54% and extortion is up 330%. This is not a marginal increase. This is a systemic failure. Again, the member from St. Catharines talked about decreasing crime. Well, guess what? The city of Surrey, the city of Abbotsford, in British Columbia, just in the last year, we've had to create many special task forces to deal with the problem at hand here today. And the reason why is because that Liberal government failed to act. Full stop. Less than a month ago, police investigated an extortion-related shooting that damaged a local business and nearby vehicles. This was part of a series that included 34 reported threats, 21 victims, and 7 shot-fired calls in just 19 days. Law-abiding Canadians must be able to trust that crime will be met with a firm and a proportionate consequence. Instead, serious crime is too often met with delay, leniency, and the absence of real consequences. More than a year ago, I sponsored legislation in this House through Bill C-381, the Protection Against Extortion Act. This legislation would have delivered real jail time for serious offences, stronger penalties for organized crime involvement, and a clear denunciation of extortion as a violent and coercive crime. The government, the Liberals, voted against it. Today, police in British Columbia report that they are overwhelmed, arresting the same offenders again and again. Communities are left to deal with fallout. Business owners are left to fend for themselves. And victims are left asking whether the justice system, in fact, works for them. This is the direct result of Liberal catch-and-release laws, weak sentencing and revolving door bail policies, which are enabling repeat offenders to return to the streets, placing families, workers, and our businesses at risk. Our motion today also addresses the government's refusal to repeal Bill C-5 and C-75, laws that have weakened consequences for serious and repeat offenders. And we mention those laws again because the consequences of those laws will even touch upon the legislation in this chamber and the impact of what the Liberals say it's going to do. Bill C-5 removed mandatory prison sentences for serious firearm-related crimes, including extortion involving a woman. Bill C-75 entrenched a principle of restraint in bail decisions that too often resulted in repeat violent offenders being released back into the community while awaiting trial. It's not every day that every single premier in the country stands against an action by a standing government. They did on that law. They did it because what the government did was so egregious that every premier, New Democrat or Liberal or Conservative, all agreed that the government had failed so badly and eroded any sense of justice in this nation. In British Columbia, police have raised new concerns about transnational crime networks, some involving individuals with no legal right to remain in Canada. Allowing extortionists to hide behind asylum claims undermines public confidence and endangers communities, including immigrant communities who are often targeted first. Conservatives believe deeply in protecting genuine refugees, those fleeing persecution and violence. But when violent criminals can claim refugee status to delay deportation, something has to change. That's why last November, Conservatives proposed an amendment to Bill C-12, which would have updated the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to bar asylum claims from being made by those who had been convicted of serious crimes in Canada. The Liberals rejected it, and nothing has changed. Mr. Speaker, this motion reflects exactly what Conservatives have promised Canadians. Bar non-citizens convicted of serious crimes for making refugee claims. Bar non-citizens facing serious criminal proceedings for making refugee claims. End leniency that allows criminals to avoid deportation. Repeal Bill C-5 and C-75 so repeat extortionists stay in jail. These measures are fair, lawful, and absolutely necessary. They protect victims, newcomers, and communities alike, and they restore a sense of justice in our country. The issue before us is not complicated. It comes down to a simple question. Will Parliament stand with victims or with the loopholes that protect criminals? The choice before this House is clear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.